Hi, I'm Samantha Critchell. Welcome back to AP's Fashion at 4. Today we're talking in the Mercedes-Benz Lounge at the Lincoln Center Tents with Kate Betts, the author of Everyday Icon, a book about Michelle Obama and her style. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Why are we all so interested in Michelle Obama? Is it that she came around at the right time? Does she have the best style? Do we all relate to her?
You know, I think it's because, first of all, she's iconic because she's the first African-American First Lady, but I also think she has a style that's very accessible and everybody can relate to it. Whether it's J. Crew or the H&M dress she wore on the Today Show last week that cost $34, or, you know, even some of her higher-end fashion, the Jason Wu inaugural gown, Isabel Toledo inaugural swearing-in ceremony outfit. It's, you know, she's fashionable and accessible, and she kind of mixes high and low, and she's always surprising us because she's a rule breaker. So I think we're riveted by that, too.
Is she someone that we might be able to learn a little more from than, you know, what all the fashion editors and stylists are seeing here, you know, say at Fashion Week?
Yeah, I think, you know, she's a working mom. She's a kind of very down-to-earth woman. She's a post-feminist icon in that sense. And I think women look up to her not just because of her career and her intellectual capacity, but also because she's finessing this whole White House First Lady role so beautifully. She really is like somebody who seems so effortless in her position there. And, you know, I just think of some of the photos of her, which I show in my book, of her like kicking her shoes off on the South Lawn at the White House and running barefoot across the grass. I mean, what other First Lady have you ever thought of even doing that? It's a whole new approach to the role, and I think women can really relate to that. And her style is very much the way that she is kind of communicating with people. In the first year she was in the White House, when you think about it, she never really said anything at all. She didn't introduce her healthy eating campaign until January 2010. So really what we got from her was this style message, which was very optimistic, the bright colors, the bold floral prints, very down to earth, flat shoes, always in motion, nothing sort of fussy or restrictive. So I think it's interesting that she's used style and what I call the power of style to communicate. She's certainly not the first Lady to do that, but it's, as the First Lady, she really does kind of capture our time and define it. And I think she did that right away through her style.
Do you think she is sending a message sort of each day with her clothes? I mean, there's been kind of a bit of controversy lately about whether she should have worn this Alexander McQueen dress when the Chinese ambassador was visiting. Do you think that everything's done on purpose, or there are just some fashion moments?
Well, you know, I think image is always a calculation to a certain degree, so yes, there is some intention there. But I think she also is somebody who likes to surprise, and I don't know if she did the Alexander McQueen dress on purpose. I tend to think she chose that dress because it was red, and that is symbolic in Chinese culture for success and luck, so that makes sense. I think she does things, maybe the yellow inaugural swearing-in ceremony dress or the white gown was something chosen specifically for the color, for the meaning in the color. I think she also does embrace younger generation designers in America because she wants to reflect her husband's administration, which, as you know, they campaigned on change and new faces and new ideas and optimism. So new faces in the administration, new faces in the wardrobe of the First Lady.
What does it mean to a young fashion designer to have her wear something that they've made?
It's funny because I interviewed a lot of them for the book, obviously, and it was so interesting to hear their stories about the reaction and the sort of overwhelming reaction to her wearing their clothes. Many of them really had never even been talked about in the mass media at all. You know, they were just starting out in the business. Jason Wu, I think, had 3 seasons under his belt, and he told me stories about how he was on the evening news in Taiwan every night, you know, ever since the inauguration, basically, and that his mother watches the evening news to know what he's doing on a given day. And also that the following day there were so many TV cameras outside his studio that he had to take his name off the door downstairs, off the buzzer. I mean, it really changed their position in the industry. Of course, like everybody showed up at their next show, retailers, editors, everything. But I think it also gave them a global platform, that they may never have had as American designers, and American designers working independently without huge ad budgets. I mean, it really gave them a certain gravitas, but also a real global name, brand.
I'm sure in researching the book, you must have gone through hundreds of pictures. Maybe you could pick a few that you think are really the iconic Michelle Obama photos, and which were the looks that you really liked, and for some reason they're not the ones we're talking about.
Okay, well, the one that I really love is, and I love her as a casual First Lady, because I think she is really the first casual First Lady. And in the book, I talk a lot about how that image of her running across the South Lawn barefoot is so iconic, because to me it sums up this idea of an everyday icon, of somebody who is, a First Lady like we've never seen a First Lady before, running barefoot in this casual, kind of athletic, very vibrant way. We've had, for the past few years, maybe even more than a decade, First Ladies in the White House who have not necessarily used the style platform as a way to express themselves. And so she comes on in, these magnificent clothes and this great style, and she exudes such charisma and she has such poise. And I think that that's something that makes us pay attention. In a way, smart of her, because she gets our attention, then she says what she has to say about healthy eating or military families, but she keeps us watching her. And, when you look at Laura Bush, people say, oh, she didn't really do that much when she was in the White House. Well, she did do a lot, but people don't think about it because they weren't necessarily paying attention to her, because she wasn't using the style platform to capture people's attention.
What other First Ladies has the public been interested in? I mean, is it a matter of timing or charisma or maybe style?
I think it's a matter of timing and charisma, and style is a big part of that in that position. I think when you think of Nancy Reagan, there was a lot of discussion about her and her spending and the china and the dresses and borrowing gifts, whatever. But we paid attention to her because she was a very social First Lady, and the Reagans came to Washington during a very difficult period, a recession, but they entertained like crazy, One of the things I discovered in my research was that they gave 55 state dinners, whereas the Bushes only gave 6. So just that alone shows you the level of, entertaining, being out there. We don't really have any other opportunities to connect with the president and the First Lady. Back in Dolly Madison's day, anybody could walk into the White House and introduce themselves and talk to the president. But obviously we don't have that access anymore. What we have is their image, and that's what we relate to, and that's kind of how we read what's going on in the White House or in the family in the White House, and how they're feeling, what they're thinking about, The First Lady really is the feminine face of the White House.
There was a lot of talk around the inauguration about Washington not being a very style-savvy city. I know you've spent some time there. What do you see there? And do you think it's changed a little bit because of Michelle Obama?
It's funny. I'm a little biased because I'm a New Yorker. And I do have images of Washington in my mind, particularly people who work on Capitol Hill in this kind of dowdy uniform that they stick to. And a lot of what I was writing about in the book was this idea of Michelle Obama as a rule breaker, as somebody who came to Washington and said, I'm not going to wear the team jersey. I'm not going to fit in and dress for the job. I'm going to dress for myself. And I think that took a lot of people by surprise, because in Washington, as you may know, everybody dresses to look a certain way. They dress for the job. It's very conservative. I think she is changing that. I think she's changing that for women of a younger generation particularly, and I think you even see it in New York and corporate, workplace people, women who have been wearing suits or dressing in a more conservative or even masculine way, the pinstripe pantsuit. I think now I've interviewed a lot of my friends who work on Wall Street, and they're all like, yeah, the younger generation's adopting the cardigan and the pencil skirt, and it's a little more casual.
Is there a tip that really we could all take away from Michelle Obama?
Well, the thing that she really recommends the most is this idea of wearing what you love and what makes you feel confident. And I think confidence is really the greatest accessory that she has.
What do people ask you about when you're doing these personal appearances and book signings? Do they want to know about her? Do they want to know about her fashion?
Well, everybody has an opinion about her fashion, which is another thing about the First Lady that is like, a point of discussion. It is, to my point in the book about why style matters, it is a civilizing force. It is a point of discussion that brings people together. It is a way that people express themselves. And I think too often in this country we see style and substance as two separate entities that can't be synthesized. And she is really the first Lady that synthesizes them, and she does it beautifully.
Is she ever going to come to Fashion Week, or is there a designer that you think she should see?
Well, I don't know if she'll come to Fashion Week. I don't think, that's another point that I make in the book. She is not a fashion person. She's a style person, and there's a big difference. But I think that it would be nice if one of my ideas was that she would wear maybe something from like the graduating class at FIT or Parsons this year. That would be a cool thing to do. Somebody still in school, just starting out.
Well, thank you very much, Kate. I've been talking with Kate Betts, the author of Everyday Icon. We're here waiting for Michelle Obama at Fashion Week on AP's Fashion at 4.